And now we will enjoy our prelude, Etude in G major by Carl Czerny, performed by Maxine on the piano. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton. I am Christina Drostin, and I will be leading our service today together with Tina Jones and Lisa Berry. I'm also joined by many others from the fellowship who have made our Sunday morning possible. We're grateful to have music today by a new accompanist who's new to UUFE, Maxine Poe-Jensen. Please welcome and greet her. Thank you, Emily Cranwell, for the inspiration for today's service topic. I also offer gratitude for the many other volunteers who are making our service possible. With our current surge in the COVID pandemic, aside from the people who are speaking here at the microphone and spaced, we encourage people to continue wearing masks while indoors, and we'll gather outside to socialize afterwards. We are an intentionally welcoming congregation, and we invite you to be part of our community. When we make this statement, we are stating our vision of love and acceptance. We welcome you, your background and beliefs, your racial and ethnic identity, sexual orientation, and gender identity, your theological perspectives. You are all welcome and accepted. If you have questions about this congregation or the UU faith, ask a member, check with one of our greeters, or feel free to ask one of us after the service. Everyone's welcome outdoors afterwards for social time. And we also welcome everybody joining us from home. And at this time, we will stand if you are comfortable doing so and join us for the gathering hymn, Spirit of Life, on page 123.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Berry. My pronouns are they, them. I'm here to read the chalice lighting for you all. These words for the chalice lighting are written by Lindsay Bates. To face the world's shadows, a chalice of light. To face the world's coldness, a chalice of warmth. To face the world's terrors, a chalice of courage. To face the world's turmoil, a chalice of peace. May its glow fill our spirits, our hearts, and our lives. Thank you.
And now please join us for our opening hymn, We Shall Overcome, which is page 169. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Hand in hand, we'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. All be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday. And now for an introduction, I'd like to share that in the spirit of our summer services at UUFE, we offer a little bit of a less traditional structure today in the form of a panel. Sharing one mic there right here for the sake of people joining us from home. This panel today will reflect on recent LGBTQ celebrations and points of growth this past year as they relate to our journey as a congregation. The panel format for a worship service is a great chance for us to frame learning under the umbrella of our mission and UU values. As a means of introduction, I offer this brief background to remind ourselves of our history as a congregation as we then reflect on opportunities to continue to learn and grow. UUFE has been a welcoming congregation for 30 years. It's a good start, and what welcoming meant in the early 1990s has notably expanded today. UUFE has long supported Our Whole Lives, or OWL, a sexuality education program for kids, It dismantles stereotypes and assumptions around sexuality and instead builds self-acceptance, self-esteem, fosters healthy relationships, and improves decision-making. More recently, UUFE has hosted PFLAG as a partner and more recently made space for GEM, or the Gender Expression Movement Group, to use our space. We've hosted training for the community and had a service on Pride with the Crashbot Kids group in April 2019, which including telling the history and the story of Stonewall and many other important historical events. Our bathrooms here in the building are now gender neutral. We have a rainbow flag flying out front and a UUFE sponsored table at Pride. We opened our doors to the possibility of an LGBTQ focused vaccine clinic during the COVID pandemic. We discussed the book Becoming Nicole as a shared read in early 2021. And this spring, we hosted a course called Understanding the Gender Spectrum. As we reflect on those many efforts we've made to grow in this area of LGBTQ topics, let us now discuss what we have to move forward towards. And with that, I will hand things over to Tina for our covenant.
Good morning. I'm Tina Jennings. My pronouns are she and her. And could you please stand for the reading of the covenant? At the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton, we seek to nurture spiritual and intellectual growth of all ages and to be actively involved in community outreach and service, cherishing diversity and celebrating our oneness with all humanity. We covenant to support each other in the spirit of compassion, respect, and love. Thank you.
I invite you now to sit comfortably in your chair. Take these next 3 breaths to settle your body. We take this time to reflect on being here and now, in the present moment. Imagine a ray of gentle, warm sunlight coming through the window and first shining on your head. As the light extends to your face, close your eyes and feel the muscles throughout your face relax. With your next breath, focus on air entering your nose, expanding your lungs, and slowly spilling out of your mouth. Feel the relaxing warmth of sunlight as its rays travel along your neck and shoulders. Each breath you exhale releases tension from those muscles and all that you've carried this past week. Now let the sunlight shine on your chest and thank your heart for its each beat as it brings fresh blood throughout your body. Feel the refreshing expansion of air in your lungs with each breath. As the rays of light spread over your abdomen and back, sense the life and vigor they bring as your body works to use the nutrition that you have fed it these past few hours. As the light illuminates your muscles and joints of your arms and legs, let it warm the muscles and joints that allow us to move throughout the day. Feel the light warm the tips of our fingers and toes. As we sit in the peaceful stillness of this space, let us open our minds to the words of one another. Let us open our hearts to nurturing one another in our journey throughout this world. With the next few breaths, bring your awareness back to the sanctuary, and as you are ready, open your eyes.
Each week, we take time to share what is on our heart. We will take turns now sharing joys and sorrows by coming to the microphone, or if you are joining us from home, please share any joy and sorrow that you wish through the chat, and we will share that with those here in the sanctuary. First, I will light a general candle for matters of the world, humanity, and all that we are carrying internally as far as turmoil as well as celebration. Let us take time to hold what we heard as well as that which has not been spoken. For the joys and sorrows that have been shared and those that remain in the sanctuary of our hearts, we are grateful. And now we will have our offertory as we gratefully receive any gifts and donations to help support our fellowship and all that we endeavor to do. And we enjoy the music K-Track 545 by Andrea Dow, played by Maxine. Thank you, Maxine. So as we get to the part of our service now where we share in a panel format, I'll let you know that both Lisa, Tina, and then myself are here to just share our reflections, our thoughts, and our ideas on the role that our congregation has had in LGBTQ support and empowerment, as well as where we are headed and the growth that we still need to work on, whether it's as a congregation and then most certainly ourselves as individuals. We all have learning and work to continue doing throughout our lives. This is a panel, but we're sharing one mic here at the podium. So work with us as we awkwardly trade off. We want to make sure that everybody at home is able to participate in here as well. So we have a set of questions here that we've reflected on and with Sue's input have put together for today, and we're happy to also hear some questions from you as well. To get us started, one question is, the gender spectrum class was offered at UUFE this past March. As facilitators, did you have any surprises? What are the things that you learned as a facilitator during the class?
Nose goes. So a surprise for our facilitators today too. I was actually I attended the class. I was not a facilitator. Sorry about that. And I was joyfully surprised of the attendance of my class. I loved seeing my fellow congregation with me. It felt comforting to have you all there. And I was surprised and humbled by the amount of knowledge I still have to learn, even being a member of the community, and how everyone was very understanding and was able to speak their truth and at the same time accept that information. The information that was provided was a packet, so if you are interested in it, you still can get this information to learn along with us. Tina, I believe, has that information, but it was a nice opportunity, and I hope that we have another one.
I'm just so used to working with Lisa in tandem that I forgot that she wasn't one of the facilitators. I knew she was there. I think one of the things that's so encouraging was just the openness and the responsiveness to folks. Is it a surprise to this congregation? No, it's not a surprise. I think, but also the desire to learn more and to be, I know, I always have a problem with mics. My wife's not here today to tell me that. But anyway, the willingness to want and the desire to want to learn more too, I think is one of the great things that came out of that. I think just the overall acceptance. I mean, yeah, there were some questions that were, one thing that wasn't surprising, we always get the question about they, them as pronouns. Always, and it's usually the English teacher in the room. I'm not trying to pick on the English teachers, but it usually is. And I guess it's just part of, even we need to learn to accept that as a society, we need to continue to grow and evolve. And, and new language does get created every day. And new ideas get shared. And it's the openness and the acceptance that's so important.
That last part touches on what I was pleasantly surprised to learn from the class, which is recognizing how many of us, even as UU people, struggle to use the requested they, them pronouns that some people in the LGBTQ community, or I should say TQ community, request. And yet the part that surprised me was not necessarily the struggle that people have, but that how willing individuals have been to work on that. Recognizing that even though, yes, I as a teacher or I as someone who loves language says, oh, they, them, that doesn't work for an individual, that people have been willing to set that aside to say, is that more important? Or is it more important that I honor and respect someone who is marginalized, disempowered, and disrespected day to day in our society? And hearing people here in our fellowship recognize how critical the acceptance and love is for people, that it means, yes, I need to practice at home. I need to say they, them, and talk about that person so that when I see them in our sanctuary, I can respectfully interact with them in a way that honors who they are. And it has been a wonderful surprise to see us all work on that. It shouldn't be a surprise, but it's been heartening to see. Our next question is, what are some of the most important concepts that you think we at UUFE need to understand?
Before I get into that question, I'd also like to add on to the they, them pronouns and how important they are. Speaking from personal, I use they, them pronouns. I identify as non-binary, and it's very touching for someone to use those pronouns for me. It means the world to me, and the way I like to explain from my point of view, it's like using someone's name. When you meet someone for the first time, You don't assume their name. You don't go up and, oh, your name must be Bob. You can't do that. And it's the same as pronouns. Just because someone expresses femininely doesn't mean they use she, her pronouns, because it's separate. Sometimes it is together, but mine is, I'm misgendered every day, and I try not to take it personally, and I try to make effort for change. And the one thing that I would love to present to social justice, along with Ann Davis mentioned this morning, bringing pronouns to our name tags. Coming to the microphone and not only saying your name, but if you're comfortable, say your pronouns. Even on the telephone, you may not know, but I'm misgendered on phone calls because my name is Lisa and I sound like a girl. So it's day and day, but I like seeing the change. I'm doing better with it, and like Christina said, it's practice. It's practice and awareness. So the question about understanding, I want you to know how, from a personal view, how important you all are to me. I see this as my church, and I've been in churches that haven't accepted me for who I am, and that's not a good feeling. So coming here and being able to be me and being accepted is the world to me. I feel alive here. I feel loved. So I wanted to know that you all are appreciated, and just keep continuing it because it's important. Thank you.
So with some of the concepts, I know, thank you. I've got my congregational wife, thank you. I need that. So with some of the concepts that came out, I think, the important ones of what is sexual orientation and how is that different than gender identity? Because they're not the same. How I physically present, my gender expression is not the same as my gender identity either. Just as Lisa was just saying, we may present in very similar ways, but our identities are actually different. I identify as a transgender woman. Lisa identifies as a non-binary person. I use she, her pronouns. Lisa uses they, them. So yes, we have unique gender identities, and that speaks nothing to our sexual orientation at all, because that's completely separate still. And the thing to remember about all of this is we all come with our own set of identifying characteristics that dictates to us who we love, who we're affectionate towards, who we find attractive, but also how we identify ourselves. And that's not necessarily anything at all to do with bodily anatomy. It's just not. I think that's an important concept. I think another important concept is what's the difference between non-binary and transgender. We just touched on it a little bit. Transgender just simply means that I didn't identify with the gender that I was assigned at birth, and I use that term very specifically, assigned at birth, because it's gender again is not simply anatomy, and I'm getting a lot of feedback here.
There you go, perfect. Yeah.
Is that it?
And I can turn it down now.
Okay, great. And so again, anatomy and gender are two different things, and I'll let Lisa speak to being non-binary, but for me as a transgender woman, I've always been a woman. Whether I looked that way or acted that way, that just meant that that's who I was. I knew that inside my whole life. So, and I don't know, do you want to talk about non-binary or? Okay. And what's it mean to come out? What is that process? Coming out is a process. It doesn't mean one day I'm this person and the next day I'm that. It's not that at all. It's a process that you go through in life. It's a journey that we all go through to identify who we are and then get the courage to accept that and to be able to present that way. So that's another big concept there. And, you know, and I guess around that question, and this will be the last thing I say, is that, you know, why does it take so long for some people? Some people come out early, some people come out later. I was 56 years old when I came out. Why did I wait so long? A lot of it, fear. Quite honestly, you know, also upbringing. You know, I was brought up here on the Eastern Shore, very conservative community. I was brought up in a very traditional religious family, and you know, there was a whole lot of community constraints, I guess I'll say, put on that, and in that becomes fear, gets indoctrinated in you. And for me, it took having a life-changing event to really realize that, you know, fear is not worth this. And for me, it was being diagnosed with a brain tumor. That's literally what it did for me. You know, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor in the spring of 2019. I had known all my life that I was in the wrong body, had hid it for years, had done it in secret, all these things. And I finally decided after, you know, a 13-hour procedure and worrying about mortality, right, that life's too short. You know, we need to be who we are authentically. You know, we all deserve love and acceptance. And I think that's the thing. So when you see folks who are, just love them and embrace them for who they are. That's the biggest thing any of us can do. Just love and embrace and help them, you know, work with their own fears, help them know that it's okay.
Tina touched on this for a minute. One thing I think that stands out that I hear a lot of us needing to still wrap our minds around is the concept of we are all, for better or worse, assigned a gender at birth. So whether it's on that ultrasound, during pregnancy, or when the baby comes out, what are the parts? Is this a boy or a girl? And right then and there, we're assigned a gender at birth. And whether or not that designation that we are given, and whether or not those body parts really match up with who we are inside is a whole nother question, and something that some people don't figure out until they become an older child or an adult or an older adult. And then finding the safe space to actually express that and let people know who you are is a whole other story. But going back to those kids, so why I bring this up is because I sometimes hear people when we're talking about genderqueer or transgender people in all efforts to be respectful and kind and talking about so-and-so, and we might use the term, so they were born a girl or they were born a boy. But right there, I just want to point that out to our congregation. That's not really the most respectful way to refer to that person as when they were a baby, when they were a child, and as they were raised. It's more that that person, instead of saying they were born a girl, it's that they were assigned female at birth. And like Tina said, she has always been a female, a girl, a woman. She has just finally found the space in the community and the drive with that life-changing experience to go ahead and express that. So instead of saying someone was born a girl by saying they were assigned female at birth, or vice versa, is a more respectful way to give them that space to honor they were always this person who they're showing us right now. We just made assumptions based on those body parts that they were somebody else. If that doesn't make sense, we can talk more later. I see a few puzzled looks. And then the one other thing I wanted to say that I think we need to work on at UUFE is our communications efforts, our publicity, our PR efforts. We've been trying to recruit some people to help out with communications for the better part of a year now, but we still have a bit of a skeleton crew. And the reason this is so important, particularly around LGBTQ efforts, is because we were just talking with a friend who's a therapist and has a number of youth who are genderqueer and transgender None of them knew about UUFE. None of them knew that there is a church in the area that is accepting and celebratory of people of all gender identities. And it's because we're not getting the word out there in the right spaces with the right energy consistently to let people know. And there is a communications group that has a lot of fun doing what we do, putting together newsletters and updating the website and trying to do some other things, but we need help. We need help to get the word out more. So please consider volunteering some time and energy towards that in the name of LGBTQ support.
So our next question, our updated mission states that UUFE is an open religious community that strives for social justice, values diversity, cares for one another, and protects our natural environment. At UUFE, what do you see as our growing edges around living into the aspiration to value diversity? Could we be more welcoming to the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ visitors? In other words, are we who we say we are?
Reflecting on that question, how can we be more accepting? Are we being reflective? Here's how I guess I would answer that. My job is actually working as an LGBTQ advocate. And I just spent the better half of the last 2 months going around the state of Maryland attending Pride festivals to get the word out about our organization. And there were a lot of folks, and we went to a lot of places that we were traditionally known at, in Baltimore and places like that. And then yesterday I was in Hagerstown, right? And it was the first time we'd ever been to Hagerstown. And I guess my point is this: I had folks coming up to me saying, "Wow, we didn't know this. We didn't know you did this great work. How can we get involved?" That's the same thing. I love the fellowship here, and I love that this congregation was out at Pride Festival with a table. And I think that's it. If we want to be inclusive and we want the folks to feel welcome, I think the first thing we need to do is go out and be in their communities. And that's just not for LGBTQ folks. That's any community that's marginalized. I look around this room and I think about racial justice as well, right? There's so many opportunities here. And yes, it takes time and it takes energy. But I think that's one of the ways that we grow. It's not by trying solely to get people in the doors here. It's by us going out and being in the community and saying, we are also here with you where you are every day. And I think that's a fundamental thing we need to be thinking about and consciously pushing to do. It's hard, and it's time consuming, and it's work. But, when it's a passion, it's so rewarding. That's what I'll say. I said, the past month and a half for me, I have literally, since May 21st, I think I have done 10 or 12 Pride events across the state. As far west as Hagerstown, as far east as Salisbury, and I got more to do in October, and I embrace those. But, I come out of there feeling so energized and so happy because I see how it touches. There's always at least one person at every one of these events that's I have touched. And that's what's important. If you don't do it for any other reason, just touch that one person. That's a place where we all need to grow. And think about what we could do if we all touched one person once a week. How much of a difference could we make?
I like how Reverend Sue's question, are we who we say we are? And I believe we are. I believe that we follow our covenant each day, and I believe we do our best. Our best changes each day, though. And there is room for growth always, and room for expanding our minds. Just getting ideas today, talking on this panel with Dina and Christina. Being a member, I believe, this fall, I've seen already so much growth with this congregation and what you all are willing to do for our community and for other communities. So yes, it does take a lot of work, and I believe visibility outside these walls would help. I also question, are we able to go to other churches? This is just something that pops in my mind. Are we able to go to other churches? There are so many of us in our community that's scarred from other churches that do not want to go. It's just like I'm sinning when I go. I want to go back to my other church, but I don't because I'm discriminated against. But there are friends of mine that say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. We accept you who you are," and it does matter. I think we could make some change. So.
I agree that I think within these walls we do a fantastic job of helping support and welcome and recognize people for their diverse sexual orientations. And I think just in the past year or two we've taken a lot of strides that we've discussed today to help become better with supporting people around gender identity, diversity. I think like we've talked about a little bit here just now, is it's a matter of what we're doing outside of these walls. So the election, for example, at least for those who live in Talbot County, there are a number of seats that are open on the school board. And each one of those seats have a candidate who is running, and about half of those candidates, almost half of them, have pretty strong stances against kids with gender diversity, gender identity diversity, and would like to make some pretty big, awful changes in the school system in Talbot County that would be very destructive and unhealthy and unsupportive for kids who are not cisgender. So that, for example, is a perfect thing that we need to stay educated about as UU people and be willing to take action and stand up for when we see that happening. So as far as local action, our elections in November are part of that with the school board seats that are open. I'm going to go ahead and move us into, I think, one last question. We can wrap these last two questions in one, and also welcome any questions from the floor. So this last question is, in Rev Sue's recent column in June in our newsletter, the Minister's column, she used a quote that she had found online. It was talking about marriage equality was never the finish line. This reflection included a long list of challenges of the work that lies ahead, including an end to conversion therapy for gay and trans youth, a repeal of laws which will legalize discrimination against LGBTQ people if it's derived from sincerely held religious beliefs. Recognition and protection for, I'm going to say queer people for the sake of time instead of LGBTQ, on the international stage. Reduction in the rates of suicide, depression, and homelessness among queer people. Being able to Google lesbian without seeing pornography, which means an end to the fetishization of queer people in general, particularly lesbians and trans women. Legalizing workplace protections for trans and gay people in all 50 states. A repeal of bathroom bills that bar trans people from using the appropriate restrooms they would like to use. Recognition and remembrance for the countless individuals who died of HIV/AIDS and reparations for survivors. An end to gay panic and trans panic defenses when people are charged with acts of violence. and an end to media representation that doesn't lead to the character's death when we're talking about shows and movies that might represent queer people or have queer characters in those shows. And then another thing I'd like to add is the sweeping efforts in many states in the country to set in place laws that would make it illegal for parents and guardians to help their kids get gender-affirming care. So if one of us wants to help our kid get hormone blockers or get gender-affirming hormones as they get older, in a number of states that is illegal, and the parents can lose custody of their kids for doing that. So there is a ton of work that needs to be done, and a lot of things that are in motion that are pretty terrifying and things we need to work against. So on that note, I'll welcome comments from the other people on the panel, as well as any questions or reflections from people in the audience before we wrap up.
Going back on Christina's comment about did it end with marriage equality? No. I mean, all we have to do is look at recent Supreme Court decisions. And, you know, Roe versus Wade has reverberated through the LGBTQ community. As I said, I've been out doing Pride events for the last 2 months. The tenor of people at those events has changed in the last several weeks, dramatically changed. There's a lot of fear because we know that if we, you know, we're talking about attacking personal rights, and as Christina just mentioned, that's also happening here locally. There's an attempt to do the same thing. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We need to constantly be doing it. You know, we need folks to say it's not okay. And we talked about voting earlier. We had comments on that. I know that early voting, the first day of early voting this year was about half of the volume that it was for 2018. So the same cycle, and we know that more liberal folks tend to vote early. So I'm worried about folks not using their voices. And the problem is when we don't use our voices, we allow those other folks to actually make decisions. And that's so important that we don't do that.
Amen.
I agree with Tina. Voices are strong. I've just living here for 7 years. This is the past year of community. I didn't even realize how big our community is. With this post, I see hate comments online being marketing for Del Mar Pride, and a part of me wants to leave it alone and not play with the drama, but another part of me wants to fight for us, and I'm not sure quite yet how to do that. So it was refreshing to see this reply of, thanks for asking. We actually need more. You know, this is what we need to work on. So it was kind of a good twist of using their kindness and listing what we need, and seeing this list of the polarity of the positive and now here the negative. It's reality, and we need this to change these things. And it drives me personally to read these listed, not knowing all of them. And I'm glad today that we're reading it for you all as a congregation to listen to and hear.
We'd like to welcome people to step to the microphone. If they have comments or questions to share, please come on up.
Okay, we can do this. No, we can't. Okay. Well, my question actually has to do with the comment you made about the people who are running for the school board. And is it my understanding, well, it is my understanding, the question is my understanding correct, that we cannot act as a church because our tax status says we can't get involved in politics? Is school board positions considered to be a political position? How do we work as a group to address and get the word out? Okay, these folks are representing these folks are representing this. You might want to consider voting for these folks.
That's a great question, and one that we can certainly have Sue clarify after today. But the school board positions are not supposed to be political. And like a lot of the polarization in our country these past few years, we've unfortunately seen a lot of undertones with some of the candidates in their campaigns this summer for the race this fall. As far as UU and us as a fellowship and being active, I think one of the things that's very appropriate for us to do, and is being done nationwide, is to get out the vote. And so there's a lot of work already being done through the UUA that we can join in on and do that locally. And I think it's fine for us to say, we encourage people to vote, here's information of the candidates, and here are their stances. I don't think it's okay for us as a fellowship to say we recommend supporting these specific candidates, but we can say, please go vote, and here's what the candidates stand for. And then people make their decisions. Is there anybody else who would like to come up with questions or comments?
It's not a question so much as a plea for patience. You know, I'm well into my 7th decade, and this never became an issue that I knew of before the last year or two. And so if I were to intentionally ignore Lisa's preference for they, them, you know, intentionally, but I might mistakenly do it out of lifelong habit, which is not meant to be insulting to anybody. I need more practice.
Thank you, Steve, so much for that. Even you coming up here and saying that means a lot, because I do understand it's hard. We all do. It's a lot of change, and we have a lot of patience. I even had to learn patience for myself because I slip. We have people that will slip, and we kind of, some people like to reflect on it and change on their own. Some people need a reminder. Some people need a little awareness. I wear a pin to help. But yes, that was very understanding. Just the commitment to change is all that matters. And it's just like my colleagues, I'm divorced, my last name changed, and everyone uses my new last name. It was very quick, but my pronouns, it's harder. And it's because, I mean, you've been using she, her, and only binary system for 30 or, 60 plus years. It's hard. So thank you. 70 plus years, sorry. That's why I really think the pronouns on name tags would be really awesome. And just the practice of even coming up to Mike, my name's Lisa and my pronouns are they, them. So, thank you.
And just following up on that, I think we all understand patience, and we want to ask for your patience with us too. We know this is new to a lot of folks, but I guess I'll say this as well. I think it's wonderful that we finally are getting a community where we can actually be visible and be ourselves. And I guess just share a data point. Gallup organization did a survey just this past February about what the LGBTQ community. And they, the big news that made the headlines was that roughly 7% of the US population now identifies as LGBTQ, as queer. But the bigger news was what they didn't say. Folks my age and older, about 1 out of 50 does. For Gen Zs that were over 18, so those 18 to 24, 1 in 5 identified as LGBTQ. Now, the reality is, folks, is that really that many more LGBTQ folks in the younger generations, or are there just more folks who are afraid or not permitted to actually express who they really were, in other generations? So it is. I agree. It's patience is needed on both sides and understanding, but most of all, what's needed is love. And that's, I think, if that's the one thing we take home today, it's just love and understanding, and a willingness to say, you know what, we're working on this, and we may not get it all right. I have to apologize to Lisa all the time. I'm terrible. I've known Lisa for a while, and I mess up, but I say I'm sorry, and I correct myself, and I move on, and that's all any of us want, just to be loved and accepted, and to say it's okay.
As we wrap things up this morning, I'd like to welcome a board member. Linda Wilcox is going to come up to share board announcements for today.
Good morning. I'm Linda Wilcox, a brand new board member, and my pronouns. Thank you all for voting for me. And my pronouns are she, her. Liz Hausberg needs 1 or 2 people to cover the RE program next Sunday, July 17th. She says you can consider playing a game or doing a craft with our wonderful group of kids. And if no kids show up, enjoy the service.
And for our closing hymn, please open your hymnals to page 168, One More Step. And stand if you would like.
We will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. Take one more step. One more step. Say one more till every word is heard by everyone. Say one say one till every word is shared by everyone. Say one more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
For our closing words, I ask if it speaks to you to go ahead and close your eyes and feel this from your heart. As we continue to reflect on today's service, let's take a moment of appreciation. Together, we appreciate this safe space. We appreciate the presence of all listening ears and open minds, whether here in person or online. We appreciate a congregation that fosters an environment where we as members can bring our true selves to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton. We close in gratitude for the gift of belonging. With this gift, we are able to enjoy life by living our lives intensely, by being who we really are. May it be so.
We'll now have a postlude, Reflections by Dennis Alexander, played by Maxine, and afterwards we invite everybody to socialize outside.